Hello, and welcome to Nostalgia Marcana. I'm your host, Doug Leaf. Each episode of this podcast, we'll look back on the movies, TV, games, people, and phenomena that we still love talking about all these years later, and ask ourselves why these bits of pop culture still enchant us today. This week, we'll be revisiting... On this episode, we're going to revisit a world shining, shimmering, splendid, because we are going back to the early 90s and the world of Disney video game adaptations. Specifically, we're going to be focusing our discussion today on the Aladdin game, the Lion King game, and a Mickey Mouse game called Castle of Illusion. But as we'll get into, there was a whole wave of Disney video game adaptations designed to inspire childlike wonder and rake in money at equal measure. So to help me do this, I have my two co-hosts today, Donald and Goofy, to my Mickey Mouse. You've heard her on the podcast before on our episode on D2, The Mighty Ducks. She is a writer, a comedian, and just one of the funniest people I know. And I can now say this, since the last time she was here, she got married. I can say, Woo! Is there a Mrs. Mayse? There is. The marvelous Miss Mayse, Eileen Mayse.
Hello, Eileen Mayse, Eileen Mary O'Connell, Eileen Goofy. I got so many names now, and I love them all.
And they all go with your ring.
They do.
You locked that shit down. I saw it.
I know, this is, as we all know, podcasts are a visual medium, so I'm holding my hand with my rings, and we can all experience that. Everyone listening is seeing that right now.
Yeah. Well, mazel tov, Eileen. It was a beautiful wedding, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being there.
Of course. And my other guest today is one of the hosts of the Spectrum Days podcast, which revisits retro games. So he's a perfect fit for today. Please welcome Philip Head.
Hello.
Woo!
Hello, everybody. Hello. I'm not married. And so I'm looking.
Ladies.
No, I'm not. I'm definitely not married, but no, I think that would annoy my girlfriend if I started prostituting myself on a podcast immediately the moment first time I'm on.
I mean, you got an hour or so to build up to it. So,
okay.
So, Eileen, I'll start with you. So I think this topic was your idea. So let's talk about this. Why did you want to talk about the 16-bit era of Disney games, and tell me about your personal memories of these?
Oh man, I mean, you came to me being like, I want you on my podcast again, but there's two strikes going on. And I was like, how can I talk about Disney without ruining any strikes? And I also, I love video games, and the Disney 16-bit games were like they weren't the first games that I played, but being like a little kid, I was born in 89, so I'm like a 90s kid. Those were like the first video games that I beat to completion by myself, unaided by my brother or my dad. So like it's always like a source of pride for me. It's like, that's kind of like how my journey as a gamer began, was particularly with Aladdin and Lion King, but also all the Mickey games. And I had to choose one, so I went with Castle of Illusions.
A popular choice. That one is highly regarded, as we'll talk about. It's
so good.
Yeah. And did you have an SNES and a Genesis, or just one, or?
I had an SNES, and then my childhood friend, Catherine Kim, who, shout out Catherine Kim, in Hinsdale,
You
Illinois.
all know her. You love her.
Woo, yeah! She lived down the street, and she had all the Sega stuff. So I'd go to her house and play that stuff.
So that's how you got your hands on
And then-
Castle of Illusion.
Yeah, and then vice versa. She'd come over to my place and we would play Nintendo, and that's true friendship.
I definitely had a friend who, like, they had the Sega, I had the SNES, and we worked that connection. Phil, how about you? How did you get started with these?
Well, as I was just saying to Doug before we started recording, now you've all established how old you are. I suddenly realise I'm the oldest one here. So I remember Disney when it was black and white. And
you played the Steamboat Willie game, did you?
Yeah. Oh yeah, with sticks and stones. You had to make it yourself.
Mickey was driving a horse and buggy.
Yeah, that was it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, no, Castle of Illusion, that blew me away. All that colour and sound. God, we didn't have sound when I was born. Didn't have any of that.
Not even in like media, just in the world. It was a silent world.
It was a very silent world. That's why there were silent movies.
No, I think it was
and that's just how old you are. You're 1,000 years old.
Exactly.
And you look great.
Thank you. Oh, aren't you sweet? As I say, I'm not married, so. Yeah, no, Castle of Illusion, crikey. Yeah, that was the game that really sold me, I think, on the Sega. It was a friend who had the Mega Drive first, and I eventually ended up getting the Super Nintendo. I was just saying to Doug before we started recording, that was kind of my machine of favourites. But yeah, it was a friend who had the Mega Drive, and I really wasn't all that impressed with Altered Beast. I think we did that and covered that in our podcast, and wished we hadn't covered it, quite honestly. But yeah, when
that
you
game
got
sounds super awesome. Yeah, I was gonna say Altered Beast. Just the name of it is awesome. The look of it looks like the best like metal album cover ever.
Yeah.
And the game is such a dud. But it's like, someone needs to come along and like remake that and make it into like what it looks like it is.
Yeah. But yeah, Castle of Illusion. When I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I get the power of the machine. And I get what could be done with it that wasn't serious, because obviously I'm over here in the UK. Some of you might have guessed from my accent. I apologise if no one can understand what I'm saying. But we got everything much later than you guys. So by the time we got the Sega, it was probably a few more titles that sort of launched with it. But what we got over here was all the sort of fairly serious stuff. I mean, Shinobi and things like that, which were fairly rock hard type games, and the pack-in title Altered Beast. Although Shinobi's great, I don't know, it wasn't my sort of thing. It was pretty hard. But Castle of Illusion, I'm not saying Castle of Illusion's a walkover, but it was attractive. It looked like you were playing a cartoon. I mean, it really did. It was the first time I'd seen anything like that, really.
Yeah, I mean, there was so much about the 16-bit era, which for people who don't know games, that's the early 90s. After the NES came this era, which is 8-bit. There was so much of that era which was like, you're getting to play a cartoon. And, in addition to like, your kind of obvious things like Mario and Sonic the Hedgehog, you'd get these like also ran things like Bubsy the Bobcat and stuff where like the main attraction was like, look how awesome we've animated this big, bright, easy to read pixel art. And, things, Earthworm Jim is another one of these where it's just like, it's all about giving you this feeling of being in a cartoon that like the 8-bit systems could sort of hint at, but not really give you quite that experience. Did any of you guys mess around with any of the Disney stuff on the 8-bit systems?
Yes, I certainly did. After having seen that, my trusty Master System didn't seem like it was all that impressive. So I was like, oh dear, why can't I play Castle of Illusion? And of course, I'm sat here with it now, much like Eileen showing her wedding ring off. I get to show off. This is the advantage of not being married, is you can have all this rubbish lying around. So yeah, I eventually did. Yeah. I did get Castle of Illusion on the Master System, which yes, I've got in my sticky little hands here. And I absolutely love this, and I still actually maintain this is probably one of the best platformers I've ever played. And I actually do prefer this just slightly over its Genesis counterpart. But yeah, there's a whole load of the Disney games, and like sort of Doug was mentioning earlier on, they came out on everything. There was a lot of cross platforming with the Disney stuff.
It's almost like Disney wanted to make money.
Yeah.
It's almost like that was their goal.
They're weird, aren't they?
Well, especially in the 80s. Like in the 80s, Disney like we think of Disney as this like media hegemony now because it is. Right, but that wasn't always the case. In fact, in the 80s, Disney was struggling a lot because they had they really had lost their way as a company since the death of Walt Disney. And in the 80s, they were really struggling. That's where you get these oddball movies like The Black Cauldron, and they had The Fox and the Hound, and like Oliver and Company. None of these things like really connected, and it wasn't until 1989's The Little Mermaid that all of a sudden they went on this highly successful tear in the movie department. But the one thing they did have in the late 80s that was like just like the precursor to that was they started hitting it with all of the Disney afternoon cartoons. So we talked about DuckTales on a previous episode of the show. The DuckTales NES game rules. It still holds up. It's really good. They put out a bunch of NES Disney games. So there was like a Darkwing Duck game. There was a Tailspin game, a Rescue Rangers game, a bunch of those. None of them really were as good as DuckTales, which is kind of in a class by itself. But like kind of that you did get like, I think there was an NES Little Mermaid game. I don't recall if there was anything for Beauty and the Beast. But then, you get Aladdin comes along, and they have the power of the SNES and the Genesis to make adaptations of that. So this is probably a good chance to dive into that one first, because it is odd that not only is there a game of Aladdin for the SNES and the Genesis, they're made by two different teams at two different companies. Mm-hmm. So they're similar, but pretty divergent in some significant ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was a Super Nintendo one. Wasn't that Virgin? I think possibly did that one.
Yeah.
So the SNES one is Virgin, and the Genesis one is Westwood, I believe.
Yeah. I just vividly remember that little pixelated Virgin logo like loading, because I have both now, but growing up I had this Super Nintendo one, and that's where my loyalties lie.
Yeah, me too.
It was definitely the one I played, because again, I had the SNES, and I vaguely remembered noticing like, oh, it's different. Like, why is the Genesis one different? Like, because in the Genesis one, he has a sword, and the SNES one, he does not. So it changes up the combat entirely. Because like in the SNES one, basically you jump on enemies like Mario, or you throw apples at them to stun them. But in Genesis Town, where things get adult and like serious, Aladdin wields a sword, which he does in the movie. Like, it's not like it's any more violent than the movie is.
No, I suppose not. It's funny you were saying about generational thing, and me pointing out I remember it being in black and white. But everyone's got their generation of Disney, like their thing when they were a kid, like probably, I don't know, between the ages of 8 and 12, maybe. It's before you outgrow Disney. So it's weird you say about Aladdin, because yes, that was when Disney made that big jump. I mean, they've got a lot, I think, to thank for Robin Williams in the character that he played in that. Made a big deal why that movie did so well, personally. But even me, by then, I'd have been 17. I was probably too old, heavy air quotes, for Disney by then. But it's funny, I consider that to be my Disney generation, because that was suddenly then, as you say, they did start making these, again, hit cartoons, which they sort of had stopped doing in a funny kind of way. And the games, I think, came off the back of that. It's the only reason I can think for why suddenly we had a beautiful moment of a string of very good Disney games, presumably because Disney were making such good cartoons at the time.
Yeah, and they're interesting because this one is kind of the first of these ones we're going to talk about. I know Castle of Illusion is slightly older, but Castle of Illusion is not an adaptation of an existing thing.
True.
So this one has to try and tell the story that goes along with the movie. It has these big, beautiful sprites to animate it with, and that's kind of what the showcase is like, look how well we can animate this story. And it was just sort of interesting to go back to, because like as a platformer, like Aladdin's movement is, at least on the SNES one, is kind of slower and more deliberate than say like Mario would be. He's more spry, but in the Genesis one he is a little more fluid and like jumping around.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, I know that did not spur more discussion. Let me. The other thing, though, I mean, tell me about. I mean, Eileen. So was this the first one you got your hands on?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I got it for whatever year it came out. It was under the Christmas tree from Santa, Christmas morning. I was very excited. Humble brag, Santa gave me presents. Yeah, I just obviously, like, I loved Aladdin. I want the record also to show that I never grew out of Disney. Like, even as
Same.
like a teenager, I was like, this is great. So maybe that explains everything about me ever.
Please tell me you dressed as a Disney character for your wedding.
Oh my God! No, I got engaged at Disneyland.
Whoa. Okay.
Close enough. That's good.
Yeah. My husband's around Doug. Actually, I think my husband's a little older than Doug. And he was like a teenager when these movies came out, but he was like a secret shameful fan. Like, he was like, I love it and I'll see the movies, but in secret, because I gotta be a cool grungy kid. Yeah, like, so Christmas, got it, immediately popped it in. My cousins came over because it was Christmas and just had so much fun. Playing those levels. I just thought the platformer was very similar to Mario, which I knew how to play, but I wasn't great at it. And I think just like having a more familiar character to myself made me want to get better at it. Because I was like, I know Aladdin. Like, Mario, it's like, at the time I had not seen the Super Mario Brothers movie starring John Leguizamo, so I was like, Mario, I can't relate to him as much, but Aladdin I've seen on the big screen. And then just the animation was so good, and the music in the game was really good, because obviously they used music from the movie, but they also like made their own tunes, and it kind of flowed well with it.
Yeah, I was about to say they do use digitized versions of, you know, the score and the songs from the movie, but not as much as you would expect. Most of the music is in fact just original kind of Arabian Nights-y sounding stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also wanted to add, like, they made challenging levels a little less stressful for a kid to do, because, like, I think one of the hardest levels in the game is when you're in, like, the genie's lamp, and that's a hard level, and just because it's so cute and whimsical, it still makes you want to keep trying if you're, like, a kid and would get easily frustrated by a hard level. That's, like, cuteness overrides that, so it just kind of teaches a kid perseverance.
That's my favorite level in the game, I think.
It's so good.
Yeah, and since we can't do this visually, I mean, basically you're in this kind of world of like clouds and kind of Greek columns, but then there's all of this stuff that's Robin Williams' head. It's, you know, it's, you know, balloons and like
you get to bounce on
and
so many heads.
Yeah, I think that really captures the spirit of like the Friend Like Me sequence of the movie. Like, it's well done, and it's your only chance to see what's inside that lamp.
Yeah, you don't get to see that in the movie. It expands on the story.
Oh yeah, I'd never thought of that. Oh yeah. Isn't there a
I don't know if you
cinematic?
see
I'm
it
trying
in
to.
the
Is there a
show.
cinematic at the beginning where they do the whole? Is it Jafar trying to get him to go into the sort of
The Cave of
yeah,
Wonders.
that comes out of the sand?
Yeah, there's a
isn't
cut.
it?
There's a cut scene. It's not very animated. It's mostly still images. There's a
Yeah.
little bit of animation to it, but yeah, they have the guy, the poor schlub that goes in there and gets eaten. Yeah, they do that.
That's right.
Poor,
And is there
poor Gazim.
is there a bit with the logo at the beginning? Am I imagining the genie pops up? Is that maybe on the Super Nintendo and does something to the Virgin logo? Or I seem to remember there's some sort of.
I think so.
I can't remember now. Can't remember. This is now, of course, I am now going to immediately have to play the game after doing this now.
Yeah, I played it a couple nights ago, and it is hard. It was like, I'm glad I had it on a modern system where you could basically rewind if you fell to your death or screwed up, because that made it possible for me to finish the game in time for the podcast. Because these games are like, there was a push to make these kinds of games a little harder because Nintendo. All the developers were worried about people just renting them instead of buying them.
Yeah.
They thought, well, if they can rent the game and then just beat it over the course of one rental, then that's not worth it. We want to give them their, $60 worth or the equivalent in pounds. They're gonna, make sure that it's gonna take a long time to memorize all of the things you have to do to get past each point in the game.
Yeah, see, this is.
Oh yeah, because like in the version I played, like after each level or like section, it's like a bunch of jewels that pop up, and that's like the code to get back to that level. Like if you started the game new, you can like enter like that code and then skip to the immediate thing. And so I had a very intricate process of notebooks where I like had little Eileen had like little keywords to remember like the codes to, like not even like get ahead, but like if I just wanted to play a level again that I loved without going through the beginning parts.
Yeah, it's a cute little code system too, because it's just like 4 images of the characters in the movie in whatever order they give you, and you just have to write it down. It's a solid way of getting through. Phil, how about you? Your memories of this game in particular.
Well, it's funny, while you were talking now, it's an interesting thing I only really come across when listening to other podcasts coming from the US, is you were talking about renting. And you always, I say you, always in American podcasts talk about it's a very common thing that was done as a kid to go and rent a game and play it for the weekend or whatever, as a reason for why they were making games harder so that you couldn't complete it in that allotted time you had. In the UK, that was so uncommon. That really wasn't the main way of consuming games. Renting was mainly videos, video cassettes. Even Blockbuster wasn't as big over here as it was in the US. There weren't that many places that were renting out games. So it's really interesting just hearing that as a reason for why games were made to a certain difficulty level. I've never really thought about it before until hearing other people talk about it on American podcasts. It's a bit of a surprise to me, that. But yeah, I think I was saying to Doug before we started recording. By the time Aladdin was at 92 or 93, that one came out. I think
late 93. Yeah,
98, 93.
Yeah.
Okay, so by mid 92, I was selling all this stuff for a living. I was running various game shops. So by then I had access to sort of all of it, and was, again in heavy air quotes, forced to play these games under great sufferance, and I hated every minute
my
of it.
condolences.
Yeah, I'm sure you feel terribly sorry for me having to test, again in heavy air quotes, test all these games to make sure they work before going out the door. But it did mean by the times of things like Aladdin, and then probably, no doubt, moving on to something like Lion King and the things that were further on down the track, I was only ever playing like the first 1 or 2 levels. They weren't always a game that I would then take home from the shop or whatever. I'd play it in the shop or demo it for a customer that would be coming in. But Aladdin is one of the ones that I did play a lot but on the Super Nintendo. I don't know why I didn't particularly play it on the Mega Drive or Genesis. I would have done, again, as I say, to have tested it or play the first level or two, but it's not the one I played. The Super Nintendo is the one I have the memories of playing, probably again because I just favoured the Super Nintendo. And I wasn't, it's not until, again, watching other podcasts and seeing footage of it, I'm not even sure I realised it was that different, because quite often games were so similar on the Super Nintendo and the Mega Drive. They were carbon copies of each other quite often. There might be some graphical difference or some sound difference. But as you say, these two were made by completely different companies. I'm not even sure I remembered that from back then, really.
Yeah, I didn't realize there were two different developers. I knew that there were some differences in the two versions, but I thought that was because, again, like Genesis was willing to let them do this stuff with a sword, and so they made that alteration. They're probably more divergent than that because they're two different teams. In fact, the SNES one, the director of that game was Shinji. I'm going to mispronounce his name, Shinji Mikami, who went on to develop the Resident Evil franchise.
Oh, cool. So, right.
Which is like crazy. Yeah. The guy who made RE 1 through 4 started out working on Aladdin for the SNES. It's just crazy factoid. But this will kind of blow your mind then, because you said rentals weren't that common. The way I got my hands on Castle of Illusion to play it at all, not being a Genesis kid, there was this place near where I grew up I think it was called Wizardrome. And what Wizardrome was imagine, like a giant library of video games, and you would pay a fee for, a chunk of time, an hour, 2 hours, whatever. And there would be a bunch of consoles there. So for that 2 hours or whatever you paid for, you go pull anything off the shelf, go pop it in a machine and play it. And so this was my chance as a kid. Like, I don't even remember my parents taking me there. I remember going there for birthday parties. Like, parents would rent this out, and they'd say, yeah, kids, go play video games for a couple hours.
That's so cool.
It was really cool. And so, like, we'd go there. I'm like, oh, I don't have a Genesis. Now's my chance to, I never really played a whole lot of Sonic. Let's do it. And so I remember playing Castle of Illusion there, albeit for a very short stint.
Yeah. It's funny, but thinking about every time I do this podcast, I always think back to days working in the shops. But because I had access to all the games, but like I say, sometimes you would only have time to play, you literally just to test it. I know I'm joking about sitting there playing games all day. I didn't really do that. Well, I did a bit, but but there are quite a few games.
Enough not to lose your job.
Yeah, there are quite a few games where I'm like, yeah, I remember this, but I remember about 3 seconds of it. I remember, but the Disney games, just to point out, the Disney games from a retail point of view, they did not hang around. And because obviously this is second hand I'm talking about here. We never sold anything new, so this is an exchange system where people would come in, they would get credit for the game or whatever, and they'd be able to choose another game or cash or whatever. But the Disney games, we knew we were onto a winner anytime, say, someone was selling their entire Sega, so they might have a few games of it. If it had the Disney titles, we knew they were gold dust. We knew they were going to fly out. They never stayed on the shelves more than maybe a day or two. Sometimes they didn't even go on the shelf because people had already put down, oh, if you get this in, if you get whatever in, give me a call, I'll come and get it. So they really held their value. But interestingly, the bit of research I did prior to this, for me, the interest is to see what the prices are, because it's what I used to do for a living. So the research I did was checked on the prices, and I was really surprised. I don't know what it is over there in the US, but over here, for a Mega Drive copy of things like Castle of Illusion, Aladdin, and a few of the other ones, I know, Lion King, they are all going for around the sort of £15 mark, which is probably $20,
20-ish,
something
yeah,
around there. I was really, really surprised. Really, really surprised. They're not expensive now to buy if you want to, buy the original carts. And we're talking ones that are fully boxed with instruction. Really surprised.
That may just because they were so popular that there's just a lot of
there's loads of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Really surprising.
I don't recall if I don't think I actually owned any of these titles. I think all of these titles that we're here to talk about today, I played as rentals. And I'm not sure why. I mean, I had other licensed stuff. I mean, licensed games is kind of its own topic because the fact that these ones are, kind of have such high quality that are worth talking about, because usually a licensed game, like even now, all these years later, it's like, yeah, make a video game out of this thing. Let's crap this thing out and see if anyone will buy it. Like the batting average is pretty low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Castle of Illusion a little bit, because this one is different than the other two, because it's not a retelling of an existing story. Eileen, I'll start with you. Your memories of Castle of Illusion.
I already hinted at this before, but freaking going to my friend's house a block away, I'd walk over, I'd bring a bag of Cheetos because you gotta provide snacks, like a lot of Midwest memory, spoiler alert, because I'm from the Midwest. It's just like hanging out in your friend's basement, and Castle of Illusions in my friend's basement was just top-notch basement time. I'm really selling it really well, but I mean it in like the best way.
No, you're right. Like I have memories. It's not that game, but like I certainly remember. Like God, like I had Street Fighter 2, and everyone had Street Fighter 2. We talked about this on the Street Fighter 2 episode. But like, man, I was like, I'm playing it at my house, and then we'll go over to your house where you have the exact same game, and we're gonna play it more.
And it's a different location.
And I like Castle of Illusion.
My pediatrician office also had Sega, and I was sick a lot. So that would always cure my doctor phobia. Was like, well, at least I could play a little Castle of Illusion when I go to the doctor.
Yeah. And it's cute. It's like, so again, like kind of a Mario idea of like, it's a 2D platformer of Mickey Mouse making his way through. What's fun about this is kind of like just the whimsy of it, because each level in the castle is like themed differently. So first it's like kind of this wooded area, and I forget what all of them are, but there's one where you're tiny, as if you're in like a gigantic, like you're walking around like bookshelves and teacups that are gigantic, and everything about it is like hyper imaginative. So it's really fun to sort of just navigate these areas and explore them. Like I think that's what I took from it, was like, oh, there's not a lot of like recognizable Disney like characters in it or anything like that. In fact, there's really none. And so it's all about just like this feeling of going to like a Disney I was also said Disney World, but that's a thing. But a Disney space world that was original. And like, it was really just, fantastic in terms of its art direction.
Yeah. It's interesting that is what they chose to do, because you got so much to draw from. Excuse the pun, with Disney. I wonder why they made that decision to go for something that wasn't based on a film. Was it? I mean, I don't know the canon of all the Mickey Mouse cartoons, but was it even referencing the more obscure older cartoons? Or because I mean the terrible. I mean, there's me saying that all the Disney games sold well. I mean, Fantasia, of course, was fairly awful, unfortunately, and a sort of massive letdown after the other Disney games, and that didn't sell. But that literally was following the film and had all the dancing things that were in the film, didn't it? All the mops and buckets, I seem to remember, and things like that. But with this, I wonder why. It's an interesting choice. I mean, I'm not sure a company would even do that now. Why if you're going to get a license from a company like Disney, would you then say, we'll just spend an awful lot more time coming up with our own stuff? We won't use any of those things that they've already made and got animations for. We'll make our own thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't have enough of an encyclopedic knowledge of Disney shorts and things to know if they are referencing things. There was one thing that looked familiar to me. There's these ghosts in one level that look like this short from, I want to say the late 30s or early 40s, called like Lonesome Ghost, which I only know because it's on Disney Plus and like the Halloween collection of stuff. So like I've watched that with my kids, and I'm like, I do have a vague memory of these ghosts with their big red noses, and like they kind of look like that, but I don't know that they're meant to literally be those characters. It's just sort of like, yeah, this is the Disney house style. We'll make ghosts that look, of a piece with those.
Yeah, it's kind of like how like a Disney short with like woodland creatures, they all kind of look like a little Bambi-esque, but not quite. Like that's just the style.
I wonder if it's Disney being like, right, you can use Mickey, but that's it. If you want anything else, you've got to pay for it. You know what I mean?
I wonder if it was supposed to be a Mickey game, or if like Disney was like, "This is a cool thing you got. Let's like
put Mickey
whip it up, swatch it. Like let's put Mickey in it, like just kind of Disneyify it a little bit."
Yeah, you might be right.
They pulled a Super Mario 2, and they said, "All right, you've got this game. We'll just swap out protagonist X here for Mickey Mouse." That's possible. I didn't see that when I read about the development, but that does make sense. My memory was I played a lot of an SNES Mickey game called The Magical Quest, I think is what it was called.
Yeah.
I remember that.
But that wasn't like an SNES version of Castle of Illusion. It was just a completely different 2D platformer with Mickey as its main character, which was also a lot of fun. I think this one, Castle of Illusion, for whatever reason, kind of had the staying power, like in people's memories and imaginations, and it may just be, again, because of that feeling of like going to these different imaginative worlds where it plays out. But I don't know.
Not as good as a Master System version.
What do you think makes the Master System version of Castle of Illusion better?
Because I had a Master System and my stupid friend had a Mega Drive.
Of course.
I really like platform games. It's probably my favourite sort of genre. It's just such a perfect game. It doesn't outstay its welcome. It's a game you can sit and get to the end of, like in whatever time you've got. You know what I mean? And I'm sure, like most of us now, we're gamers and have been gamers a long time. But do we have all day to sit down in our basements playing games all day? We don't. You might have 20 minutes. You might have half an hour, a luxury of half an hour to play a game. You know what I mean? It sounds ridiculous. I used to do it all the time. And when I used to be working in the shop, I'd be doing it all day at work. I mean, testing heavy aircraft, testing games all day at work, and then go home and play games even more. I mean, all day of playing games now. But this, the Master System one, you can put this on. You can get to it. There's still that thing about actually getting somewhere in a game in a short space of time, which is an attractive thing. You get to see all the levels. You get to see all the fun, the secrets in one play session. Whereas something like, I've been enjoying at the moment playing Mario Wonder. I think Doug was mentioning that before we came on air. That's great, but I'm probably playing a level at a time. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, and I'm really enjoying it, but that's all I'm doing when I spend 20 minutes or half an hour if I get to play it. I'm not I don't know, there's something about that getting to the end or seeing a large amount of very good platforming game design in one play session. There's something very seductive about it.
Yeah.
I don't have a dungeon. Was it a dungeon?
That.
Oh no, not a dungeon. What was it you said you used, Eileen? Not a dungeon.
A basement, not a
basement, not dungeon. I shouldn't say dungeon. Basement. I'm sorry. The Disney basement. The Disney dungeon sounds better. It's more alliterative. The Disney dungeon. There's a game. The Disney dungeon.
Disney, if you're listening right now, we got some great ideas.
We've got the voice actors.
That's where they put kids at the theme parks who misbehave. They put them in the Disney. We saw you pulling Winnie the Pooh's tail. You're going to the dungeon. What you're talking about, Phil, is kind of, there is this larger question about, like, time per dollar ratios with games where it's like, well, it's Elden Ring. It takes you 150 hours to finish, and that's great. Like, there is almost no space anymore for a game that you can sit down and finish in less than, say, 2 hours. The only thing that they would do is, like, you could say, like, yes, you can finish this game in 2 hours if you're perfect at it, but we'll make it really, really demanding with, like, no margin for error, and that will extend your playtime.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we got these, like, hyper hard stuff for the 8 and 16-bit era.
It starts.
Let me move on to The Lion King then, because this one is the most, I think, technically impressive.
Neither me or Eileen want to. We want to.
No, I'm ready.
We're happy to end the podcast there.
I got things to say about The Lion King.
I thought you might. All right, so Eileen, I'll turn you loose here. Let me hear your thoughts on The Lion King.
It is the most abusive relationship I've ever had in my life, me and Lion King. It just hurts me every time, and I keep going back.
Does it take you to the dungeon?
Maybe it takes you to the dungeon. Like, maybe it'll change. Maybe I've changed. It's so hard. It is such a hard game. Beautifully animated, but, like, I don't know why I keep going back into it. Like, it's pure torture that I put myself on. And I've really, in college, so this is not just childhood, like, obviously I played it as a kid, loved it, got abused by it as a kid, but in college, I bonded with my friend Ian over that game, and so then, because we'd have long winter breaks in college, like a month long, and we came up with a tournament, and it was whoever can beat The Lion King on the SNES first, like, gets, we didn't even have a prize. It was really just, like, the bragging points. So we would, like, coordinate times where we're both free. We didn't have Zoom, didn't exist, so it was just Skype. So we put it on Skype. We would have our friends on to keep us all honest. And just, like, play and scream because both of us hated it so much, but it was a love-hate.
I see Phil smiling. Is your relationship with this game similar? This is a love-hate.
The only thing that's different is the dungeon. I wish I'd had the dungeon. I think that's where Lion King deserves to go. I think, much like I was saying earlier on, again, another brilliant film, but well beyond what normally I would say that a young person would have been interested in a Disney film, because by then, I mean, when was Lion King? That was 94?
That was 94.
94. Yeah, so I'd have been...
The game is 94, I think. The movie's 93.
I'd have been 72 then. So, no, I'd have been nearly 20 by then. So, again, to be interested in a Disney film, it was seen to be a bit of a kid's thing, you know what I mean? But great. Really, really good. There was two ways that we would get games secondhand in the shop that were what you'd say nowadays you'd call AAA titles. So the Disney games were equivalent of AAA titles, but they either would come in because somebody completed it, so i.e. we'd see it perhaps the next day after release. Again, just to say, we didn't sell new titles, we were only dealing in secondhand, so we never had stuff the day of release unless someone either got home from school, found it lying there, their parents had bought them it, they completed it in an hour and came down and came to the shop with it, or they played it and hated it and came down within the hour to my shop to sell it to me. So when copies of Lion King started turning up the next day, it's like, okay, well, let's find out which one of these two it is. Put it on. Oh, it's really, really hard, and everyone hates it. And it was that was it. And I got nowhere in it. It's impossibly hard. Every podcast I ever see about it, everyone says the same thing. I thought, oh, good, it's not me. All these years later, it's like, was it me?
No. No, I played it. again, I have that remastered collection they put out on modern consoles. So I'm like, all right, I beat Aladdin on that for the podcast a couple days ago. I sat down to do Lion King, and even with the ability to like rewind, like, oop, I missed that thing. I'll rewind and try it again so I don't lose a life. There was still stuff that like this taking me like 40 tries to get through like one jump. And then like to beat the level, you would have had to have done that multiple times, throughout the thing without losing a life.
Yeah.
Which would, that level of perfection, it's like what we're talking. Well, before I get to like what my Waterloo was, let me ask you guys, where was it in this thing that you were just like that was the wall you could not scale?
Blimey. I
know there's a lot of them.
I'm fairly sure I didn't even get to be grown up Lion King.
Oh, that's always... See, that was also a fun thing, was like, oh my god, the main character grows up in the game! Which, like, that was before, obviously before N64 with Ocarina of Time, so, like, I'd never seen that before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I was a kid, I had to have my brother help me with that one, so we would, like, alternate who would play. So we did beat it, like, tag team, but then, again, that's always a game I go back to. So I did beat it myself, probably as, like, a teenager.
You mean Ocarina? You mean Ocarina of Time is what you're talking about now.
Oh, no, Lion King.
Oh, you did manage to beat Lion King with your brother.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Okay.
I managed, as a kid, I beat it with my brother. We would just pass the controller back and forth, and then I beat it as a teenager. I've beat it a couple times.
What?
As an
More power
adult,
to
it's
you.
not easy. Again, it's an abusive relationship, and I keep going back to it.
Yeah. And what makes it so hard? We should talk about what makes it so hard. So, one, you are controlling a character that's on four legs, and so like the way Simba kind of jumps and clambers over things, it's not quite as intuitive as say like an upright character like a Mario or a Sonic. Like that makes it hard. But then there's just a lot of stuff where like the margin for error is so small. So like even in the second level, the I just can't wait to be king section, at one point you're riding on the back of an ostrich at like a set speed, and then like obstacles will come up, and it's like there's a little thing on the ground and you jump over it, and then there's a little thing that's a little higher and you duck under it. But then they'll give you a thing where you have to jump over something, and there's another obstacle real close by. So your jump arc has to like get over the ground obstacle, and then you have to get back down to the ground before you smack your head on the next thing. And the window for that is so small, and there's no like indicator on the ground of like, right after I pass this bush that I hit the button. Like there's nothing to help you figure out where that magic spot is to jump. And that was the thing I had to get through with like rewinding 60 times just to make those jumps. Fuck that.
I could do. I mean, that section's muscle memory for me now. I can just do it. But yeah, it is hard.
That's how you have to do it.
But hey, if you can beat Lion King, you can beat any game.
I was gonna say it's like the gaming equivalent of the Sword and the Stone. Like if you finish the game, you get to be the King of England. That's it. Like it's that hard.
It's funny listening to you there. That a moment in the game has occurred to me that might have been the bit where I got to, or it's certainly a bit I remember struggling with, where it was a different effect, where you're moving into the camera and like
the stampede,
the stampede, yeah. I can remember that bit.
That's my favorite part.
Right, that's the bit I that might be the bit I got to. Strong memories of struggling with that bit for some reason.
It's so good.
I mean, I will say that the game aesthetically is a triumph for the SNES. Like it's so well animated. It looks beautiful. This one, there's not really any original tunes. They take full advantage of the fact that they've got this like best in class score from Hans Zimmer and songs from Elton John, which makes this actually the second Elton John gaming experience of my life. Which is when I was growing up, we had a pinball machine in the house, which was it was an Elton John like Captain Fantastic pinball machine. Which was pretty cool just to have that lying around. Why my dad picked an Elton John pinball machine, I have no idea. I mean, I guess he bought it in the 70s. So
I love the thought of an Elton John gaming experience.
It's about all there is. I'm not aware of any others. You know.
He probably has some songs in like Rock Band. So
I guess that's true. There's got to be a couple of Elton John tunes
probably.
in Rock Band. Yeah, sure. Someone's
I just rediscovered Rock Band. I was at Free Play, which is like a free play arcade in Dallas. I was in Dallas last weekend, and my husband
but I was in Dallas.
Not to brag. And like my husband, he's from Dallas. He had never played like Guitar Hero or Rock Band because that was like very much like a 2000s, mid 2000s college experience for me. So I was like, we're going to play this right now and you're going to fall in love with it. And mission accomplished.
I feel like that's due for a comeback. They need a new version of that would be a lot of fun. I think. It's time. It's been long enough. The Lion King stuff, like I also, even in this, like trying to like fight my way through it, I never got to adult Simba, but at least adult Simba, like he has like some offensive capabilities. Like he can like swipe at stuff and, you know, do some damage. Like young Simba, like all you can do is like roar at things and they sometimes flip over and then you jump on them.
He could do a little rolly roll.
Yeah, I wasn't good at getting the rolly roll to happen unless you were like, on
that's
a
my
hill.
favorite thing. And also if you just stop playing for a second and let him just chill idly, a butterfly comes by and he chases it.
That reminded me of another, I wrote in my notes, the idle animation for Castle of Illusion, I forgot, is like Mickey never stops moving. So if the second you like stop running to the right or left or jumping, he like boogies in place. Like he never, he just like sits there and like
swings his belly or something, doesn't he? Yeah.
Very cute.
Didn't
any other thoughts? Go ahead, Phil.
No, I was just going to say, didn't it's going back to Aladdin? Didn't the Disney animators, didn't they do the Sega version and not the Super Nintendo? Isn't that why the Sega one looks so good? I'm really sure animators from the original film were involved or something.
Yeah, that probably explains why it is more fluid and looks more. It does look a little more like he moves the way he moves in the movie.
Yeah, I just wonder whether they're involved with the Lion King as well. I don't know that they are. I just wonder because it does look really, really good. It's got to be said.
There are certain animations. There's like an animation like late because I couldn't beat it, but I did watch a playthrough to get to the end. And there's in the climactic fight with Scar. There is a point where Simba like throws him, like Simba's on his back, but he has like Scar and he kind of like throws him. And like the animation
like in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, it's animated the way he moves in the movie. So they may have actually used animation cells or something as a basis for some of it because it does look, you know, there's that moment where they have Timon and Pumbaa in the game doing like mini game stuff. But like when you start up the game, you've got this really well animated version of Timon going, "It starts," and like that is, I think, lifted exactly from the movie. Like even the animation, the way he moves is drawn it's really well done. But you'll never see any of that stuff because it's too freaking hard.
I do.
Yeah, okay. Eileen did. She conquered it. Yeah, she is the Lion King.
It's like the moon. You know it's up there and you can see it at a distance, but you're never going to go there. You're never going to get to see what it feels like to bounce around on the moon.
I think, and also the Aladdin one. I mean, I don't think the Aladdin one has any of the voice cast in it, but the Lion King one, they use actual clips of like. There's a clip of James Earl Jones, and as I mentioned, Nathan Lane, and I think you hear Pumbaa at one point. Like, there's a couple of like voice. Oh, and like I think you hear JTT as well, right? As young Simba, whenever you get the checkpoints, he goes like, "Cool."
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
it's a really aggressive. It's a really aggressive cool.
How do you feel about JTT, Eileen? Because you're the right age.
Oh man, always a fan. He was a little cutie. He was a cutie as a kid, and really well performed the role of Simba, and I think that now that he's an adult, I wish he sounded like Matthew Broderick, because that's really what the movie made me think would be his journey.
I found out recently that Matthew Broderick is not doing the singing parts for Simba, which is weird because
Isn't that weird? Because he's a Broadway actor.
Exactly, like he was the lead and the producers on Broadway. Like the guy you had a singer that sounded just like Matthew Broderick in the studio because it was Matthew Broderick and you didn't use him. So I always thought that was a little weird. And then I love that the credits on Lion King is the Elton John credits version of "Can You Feel the Love Tonight,"
Yes.
which is that always struck me as kind of funny.
Have you ever seen the music video for Elton John's "Can You Feel the Love Tonight"?
I'm sure I saw it at some point. It's got those.
It's
those
very funny.
Eyes, right?
It has a segment where it's like a close up of Elton, and then it immediately cuts to a close up of an animator drawing Elton, and it looks not great. Like they could have hired a good animator.
I mean, they might have had a few on staff there who could draw an animated Elton John. Well, we're kind of coming to the end here, guys. So I'll put it out to you. I'll start with you, Phil. Why do you think that people still love going back to these games all these years later?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, that's a subject that comes up in our podcast all the time and is quite frankly why we do our podcast. It's for that very reason, trying to work out why on earth it is. I think I certainly still a collector of these games, even though I was working in several shops. I mean, I had access to absolutely everything. It's ridiculous that I am still collecting. You can't quite see out the frame of this, the video that I'm in. There is a shelf over there full of all these games. Honestly, it's over there.
I believe you.
Thank you.
I believe you.
So it's just like, so for me, I still play them because they are what I remember. It was probably the best time of my life, buying and selling these games, being lucky enough to be in what I consider a golden age of gaming, that 80s, 90s gaming era. Maybe it's just because of the age we were, I don't know. Again, we often mention this in the podcast. Is it that zeitgeist thing, your age you're at? But also for me, platforming games, as I've mentioned several times today, they're what I like. So for me to go back to them, they're like visiting old friends. I know that's a very sort of corny thing to say, but it's true. And also why I'm enjoying Mario Wonder. I mean, it's so good. It's just so good.
I love that fat elephant so much.
Yeah, it's great. It's a nice game. I mean, that's become such a contrived and awful word, and people recoil if you say to someone you're nice. It's almost become an insult, but it's a nice game. It's friendly, it's warming. I could come up with a whole load of other hyperbole, but it doesn't get to the crux of it. The question of why do we go back to these things, I don't know. Why do we still put on a Pink Floyd album that we heard in '93 or something? I don't know, you just do, because because it's fun, it's nice, they're good. But I'm not going to be playing Fantasia anytime soon, and I'm not going to be playing Lion King anytime soon because I just don't want to.
You must really like yourself, unlike me, who I guess I hate myself.
Well, you've got that dungeon to go and sit in. I haven't.
I do, my Midwest dungeon.
Mm-hmm. Eileen, I'll put the same question to you. Why do you think it is that you go back to these games other than masochism?
I think a lot of what Phil said, it's like visiting an old friend. It's just, for me, a lot of times it's like a reset. I play a lot of new stuff, and sometimes I'll hit a wall or I just can't get past an area, and I'll be like, I'm gonna play a game that I know I can play for a little bit, because that's a confidence booster, and it's a nice reset, and it's just kind of taking you back to a time, a really fun time to be alive. 80s and 90s was really cool. We had cool Disney movies, we had cool Disney games, we had cool other games. It was just it was a simpler time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of feel the same way. For me, kind of coming in the middle of between you two in terms of my age, so I would have been, again, maybe 11, 12, 13 when these things started hitting. And as a kid who, like, I wanted to be an animator when I grew up. When I was a kid,
I did
that's
too.
what I wanted to do.
I did too.
Yeah, and so like I was really into this stuff, not only just because they were good movies, but I was really interested on, like, how do they do this stuff, the technical aspects of it.
It's career
and so I was
research.
all in. I didn't have to watch these Disney movies in shame. I was all in, and so for me, like, the games were like, this is a part of the experience. Like, it's not just watching the movie. Playing the game was like extended the good vibes I had from Aladdin and The Lion King and this world of really just fun, creative, animated stuff. And so going back to it, it's like, yeah, there's something about, like, well, if I want to go play an old platformer, and I've played enough of, the obvious, Super Mario World or whatever, this, like, second tier of platformers that are all based on Disney stuff, like, there is a high level of, like, technical proficiency that goes into these, in terms of the way they look, the way they play, setting aside the difficult issues in The Lion King. There is something about these that are like, I know I'm going to have a good time on this ride, just like I would watching the movie or going on a Disneyland ride. There's just something about this experience that, like, lets you know that, like, I'm in good hands, and even if I'm banging my head against the wall, like, it's going to be pretty and it's going to be fun and whimsical and yeah, it's just I would recommend of people who have, like, probably maybe younger people who haven't played all of the obvious classic stuff, that there's this whole world of, like, these licensed games are worth checking out for that reason. They will give you some of the gameplay experience you want, with also this extra level of polish that a lot of other games don't have.
Yeah.
They don't, like, talk down to the audience. They're not like, this is a kid's movie, we're going to make it really easy, which I always respected that.
Yeah, it is the exact opposite of the shovelware that we ended up getting in predominantly the Wii era. Any sort of Disney type stuff, or Disney-esque, not just Disney, but Disney-esque stuff that appeared on there. If anyone thinks that the 16-bit, Disney games are like that, they're not. They are definitely worth going back and looking at, definitely. Yeah.
All right, so we've come to the end here. So I thank you both for coming on. This was a treat to revisit this stuff and to talk to you guys. So Phil, I'll start with you. If you want to plug your stuff, please plug away so our audience can find you and hear more of your wonderful insight.
Well, as I say, I'm not married, so if you've got a dungeon you'd like me to come and visit. Yeah, no, we do a gaming podcast. I do it with my cousins, Christopher, who is over there actually in America, not far from you guys, and John is over here in the UK. He's our producer. You never hear him, but he is there, honestly. And our raison d'etre it is to try and remember a game that we used to perhaps play together when we were cousins, and then we go off and actually play it and come back and see whether it lives up to anything that our memories thought that it was, and it usually doesn't. We usually end up hating whatever it is, and basically we are ruining our childhoods one game at a time. So please feel free to come and join and ruin your childhoods as well. Look us up, Spectrum Days. You'll find us on YouTube and all the other various podcast places.
Cool. Eileen, how about you?
Oh man, folks, if you like funny content and you like social media, look no further. Follow me on all the things. I'm at Eileen Mary O'Connell on TikTok, on Instagram, on Threads now. Still on Twitter, X as I_Lean, but it's going out. It's going out. And also follow Pluto TV on all socials, because I'm their social media manager, and if I'm not making content for myself, it's because I'm doing that for my day job.
There you go. And of course, if you like this show, please do drop a review over on iTunes or wherever you found it. That helps the show. And I know you're out there. I know you're listening. So that's your homework. Go leave a review. But if you like the show, of course, tell a friend. That's actually even better than doing that, is just telling a friend to listen. So if you have thoughts on our recent episodes, the last one you'll hear before this is our one on Batman 89. And before that was Clue, the movie. Before that, up at Treasure Island. So that was our Tim Curry thing. We did Rocky Horror, then Treasure Island, and then clue. So lots of Tim Curry stuff. And if you have thoughts on our upcoming episodes, which will include, of course, this, next up should be the Care Bears franchise. And then after that is Crash Bandicoot.
God!
Wow.
Yeah, we're going to do Care Bears and Crash Bandicoot. And after that, I'm not sure. But if you have thoughts on all of that stuff, you got to find us on the socials. The links to that, of course, are here in the show notes. But we're on Twitter and BlueSky as at NostalgiumPod. And then we're on Threads and Instagram as at NostalgiumArcanum. So those are places to go. But I would recommend, if you're picking and choosing, and they're all free, but Instagram is where I post all the bonus stuff for the episodes, extra videos and things to tide you over until the next thing. So, guys, thanks again for coming and doing this. This was a blast.
Thank you so much. What a treat.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you. Oh my gosh.
I'm going to go to my dungeon. I can't wait to pick my new dungeon.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to this.
You're all invited to my dungeon. I got snacks.
Can we sing
I'll bring the
Hakuna
Cheetos.
Matata?
and I'll bring the bugs then, in addition to snacks. All right, guys. So until next time, that is one more entry in the Nostalgium Arcanum.
I need that back!
Well, I'm afraid I can't help you. It's gone, you know. It's nothing but code now. And it'll stay that way until someone wins the cup at the end of the race.
Well, maybe I'll just have to have a little talk with the winner then.
Is that a threat I smell? You're beyond the halitosis you so obviously suffer from.
Listen, Nelly Wafer, I'm not leaving without my medal.
Yes, you are. Winchell, Duncan, get him out of that cupcake and on the first train back home. And if I ever see you here again, Wreck-It Ralph, I'll lock you in my fungeon.
Fungeon?
Fun dungeon. You know, it's a play on words. It's a fun... Never mind. Now, I've got a glitch to deal with thanks to you. Goodbye, Wreck-It Ralph. It hasn't been a pleasure.